I love forest photography, but honestly, I find it to be one of the hardest types. That said, there are a few tips and techniques I like to use to make sense of the chaos in the PNW woodland. In this hike, I went to Wallace Falls State Park to shoot some photography. Wallace Falls is a really popular hike near Index, Washington, along Highway 2 that features an amazing waterfall towards the end. My favorite part of this hike is the first mile, which features some really amazing trees draped in moss, sort of a miniature version of what you might find in the Hoh rainforest on the Olympic Peninsula. One other aspect of this hike that made me come here is that there's a ton of running water everywhere. The Wallace River runs alongside the trail, and there's a pretty cool smaller waterfall a few minutes from the trailhead. Today though, I left my wide-angle lens in my bag and just sat and appreciated and mused on how beautiful the falls were without shooting any photographs on my digital camera. One lesson I've learned is that the scenes of a landscape like a waterfall are comprised of a lot of smaller vignettes, and using a telephoto lens can help you tell those stories. A waterfall is just a ton of small cascades, and it can be a true joy to represent those more intimate details of the landscape. Knowing where to start and how to use your telephoto lens effectively to tell stories can be tough, so here are a couple tips. First, try focusing on a certain type of subject like a fern and just take a ton of photos of it. Look for ways to tell its story by being intentional about your shots and emphasizing textures, patterns, shapes, and other uniform details. Also, experiment with techniques like using shallow depth of field, shooting through other plants, playing with focus, or even more advanced techniques such as motion blur. To be most successful in your telephoto photography, identify a clear subject like a plant or a pattern. To help with this, keep in mind perhaps the most important tip: pay attention to the light. If you're able to get direct sunlight in the forest, let the sun do the work in spotlighting subjects and create the scene. Your job is to be observant and look for that light, and to shoot when you see something present itself. I really didn't cover that much ground on this hike. I really spent a lot of time at the river, just looking at the light against the trees. It was an awesome vantage point. At one point, this tree that I saw across the riverbank was quickly being illuminated by the rising sun, and I knew I needed to get over there and shoot. I am so happy that I did, and I was able to capture this photo here. This is really an image that I felt made itself thanks to all the beautiful light on the hanging moss. The image was shot at 180 millimeters at 1/400th of a second at 100 ISO, so I could ensure that the light on the tree was captured properly, but the background was still dark, and this allows me to emphasize the subject. I used a 5.6 aperture to give enough depth of field where the subject was in focus, but the background still has a nice pleasing blur. I really love the way this photo captures the Pacific Northwest late fall vibe so well, and I couldn't have asked to walk away with a better shot from this hike. I'd be curious to know some of your best tips for photographing these types of subjects. Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.